you are also entitled to be at that table because you can contribute something that they may not think about. And that's one of the things that kind of irritates me. I remember being the only woman in a technical meeting and sitting in the back, and I went, this is crap. I'm moving to the front. And I moved to the front of the table, and I said politely, could you move over so I can come in? Sure.
Welcome back, everyone. Today we have an incredible woman who has been really a trailblazer in her career, and she is doing incredible things to empower women in their careers. My guest today is Kim Ziomek, and she sits on the board of Women in Manufacturing. She also co-founded a private group for senior women in her field, and she has built her career as a connector. And I am so excited to just get into the conversation and share with you all the golden nuggets that she is bringing and sharing to us. So let's get right into it. So I reached out to you because I know that you are very active in the Women in Manufacturing Board. Tell me a little bit about how you got involved with the Women in Manufacturing Board.
Great question. I met Allison, oh my gosh, 20 years ago at an event that she was participating in, and AWA Foundation was helping promote WIM. And we've been friends ever since. And I basically asked her, I said, hey, if you ever need somebody on the board, let me know. And I'd be happy to offer my counsel and guidance from a different perspective than all the other ladies that are on there in terms of sales and marketing. And so I applied and I was chosen. So my term doesn't end until 2027. No, 2028.
That's awesome. I love that. And I know Allison is obviously the founder of the Women in Manufacturing Summit. I found you because my husband goes to a lot of trade shows, and he brought me back the Women in Manufacturing booklet from when you guys were here in Chicago, and I missed it. I was like, oh my gosh, all these amazing women. So
It was a good one too.
Yeah, I just made it my mission to start reaching out to many of you because so much wisdom, so much knowledge. And I'm like, oh, I need to capture some of that goodness. So I'm excited to be chatting with you today. But with that being said, I do want to, again, highlight the fact that you do bring so much knowledge and expertise. And you and I had a pre-call, and I have been working a lot with women, specifically high-performing women. And one of the things that what I bring to the table, the differentiator that I bring, is that I know that these women are doing amazing work, but a lot of times they're not able to translate that work so that the leadership recognizes and rewards them. And so I kind of want to start with your overview of why women are not advancing the way you and I think they should be advancing.
That's another really good question because it's a concern of many organizations. And I think one of the things is, we hold back. We don't raise our hand. The other thing is we don't take a seat at the table. We go in the back. We don't advocate for ourselves. And I think that's part of the culture of women coming up when they're growing up, which is a shame. But I can tell you that working with all the women in manufacturing, in all the other sectors, these women that are coming up now have the benefit of us paving the way for them. And we counsel them to say, hey, you know what? It's okay to raise your voice in terms of your opinion, your knowledge, your input. It's very important. And it gives the audience a different perspective sometimes, whether that audience is all men or all women, mixed, it doesn't matter. But the basic knowledge of advocating for yourself has to be ground in at basically, I'll say, the elementary, junior high school level. And that's something we don't teach.
Yes, absolutely. And that's this is why it's so important to have these conversations. And obviously, you and I are not the only ones. You have a couple of organizations, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the the one issue that I think women are not good at is translating that hard work. And the bottom line, Kim, is that it needs to be translated into that language that, number one, matters to the leadership, and number two, that they understand with that number, that metric, that ROI. So it's so interesting to me that I'm like really boiling down to, because a lot of times we talk about metrics on resumes and stuff, but
Mhm.
the numbers speak for themselves. So
Oh,
it
absolutely.
is so important for them, like you said, to go and advocate for themselves.
Mhm.
But let's talk.
Let me
Go ahead.
okay, so let me add to that a little bit. So
Yeah.
in terms of advocating for themselves, I also encourage women to join organizations,
Yes.
whether or not it's internal or external, and that helps get them recognized in terms of their strengths and weaknesses and where they can improve. Um, and just basically maybe even in that organization, if they have a coaching program, they can have a coach, and
Yes.
that even helps them even more come out of their shell and be a little bit more assertive, not aggressive, but assertive
Hmm.
in their presentations and in their ways of delivering the information. I always use situation, action, results because that gets it right to the point, straight down to the nitty gritty, and your point across. Again, this isn't personal, this is business.
Hmm. You just said something, when I've been talking to conversations, whether it's, in my membership or, in anywhere that I speak, a lot of times, and this just happened with one of my clients, they're like, I need more confidence. I'm like, you don't need more confidence. You need more conviction. You need to go out there and like speak about it. So I'm glad that you brought that up, because it is a big difference of, a lot of times we have that false sense that it's like, I don't have the confidence or the knowledge or the skill, when they do. And like you said, a coach really can help them, or a mentor can really help them kind of pull that, that gold, that goodness out of them. So that's fantastic. You co-founded LRIG. What is it, and why did you start it?
So, Legacy Retirement Influencers Group is the LRIG. And if you take the first initial going backwards, it spells girl.
Yeah, love it.
And the reason why I founded it was I had a conversation years ago with one of my significant mentors, Carla Balo, who used to be president for Nissan for the R&D facility here in Michigan. And she is still a longstanding friend of mine. And we sat together at the Southern Automotive Women's Forum, and I said, there's all these young people in the room, and we're listening to the plant manager for Nissan down south give us her story. That's great. How do we then advocate by sharing our stories to the younger generation who's coming up that we have, again, paved the way for and made it
Hmm.
hopefully a little bit easier for them?
Hmm.
So I said to her, I said, there isn't a group out there of senior level women, and it can be from automotive, it can be from hotel, it can be an entrepreneur, it can be law firm, it can be a car dealership. We have all women, and I went around and I said, who can we invite to be on it? So we have about 85 women. We meet at least once a year, and it's usually at my home. And we talk about things that you not normally would talk about in your everyday actions. And how can we help each other as well as helping the younger generation come up and make a significant difference? And not go over the cliff, but stay on the cliff.
Right.
It is a private meeting. There is no social media. It is by invitation only. There are no men and there are no pictures. So it's a safe space for these very senior level women to come to and have an honest, open conversation and meet some people that they don't even know. So it has been a huge success. And we'll be meeting again in October of this year. And that is why we did it, because there was no means for these women to basically let their hair down, have a
Mm-hmm.
cocktail, have some
Mm-hmm.
food, and a genuine conversation and not have to worry about anything. There's no quoting, nothing. So it's a safe space and they are grateful for it.
Hmm. I like so much that you're like, no social media, no pictures, safe space, because I mean, and mind you, a lot of people are like, oh, I need to post, I need to grow, I need to this. And you are very selective. You're almost like handpicking the women that are going to be able to contribute. So my question to you is, obviously, it's a safe space for these women. Do they actually share the challenges that they're having at the office, at the plant, wherever? And how do you take those challenges and actually make it so that then they go back to their respective places and share that information?
That's a really good point. And we do have some very intense conversations. The last one we had was on transgender
Mm.
and how our organization's handling that. I'm not going to get into the specifics,
Hmm.
but basically those are the types of conversations that we have. In terms of also politics that go on. Recently, we've seen some women of significant levels leaving the workplace, some of their choice, some not of their choice, and for reasons that are beyond our comprehension and make no sense. So we talk about that as a group so that we can help women in the future not go through the same thing again at their level. What's concerning, though, is if you look at the trend of the mobility sector, it is becoming like it was in the 80s and 90s, a little bit more male dominated. And that
Mm.
is concerning by the LRIG group. So we've kind of talked about that. And then I believe this October, we'll talk about it even more.
Yeah, I mean, that is concerning to me, and that really gets my goat.
Yeah,
Why do you
yeah.
think that is, Kim? Just out of curiosity.
Ah, yeah, gosh, that's a great question. Um, I think that some organizations are not utilizing the strengths of those executives or women who are moving up. They're not recognizing those strengths, or they recognize them and they're so strong that they get jealous. And then here
Mm,
comes the
yeah.
green-eyed monsters, right? It's not because of the money issue. That's not it. It's again, there are some women that are out there in the industry that are very strong and very competent and can basically run circles around some of the executive leadership.
Yeah.
And I think that poses a problem. The other issue is that sometimes these women have to report out to the board of directors. So they're out and they're making suggestions to the board of directors, and it's not this straight and narrow. It becomes something that is way to the right. And some board members are like, what are you, crazy?
Yeah.
And then they get targeted. And then sometimes they're let go because they don't go into the norm of the industry thinking. Now, again, that's not all industries, but what we're seeing in the mobility sector is a reversal of the leadership. Now, again, it's not all leaders because some of the people that are out there in leadership are outstanding
Yes.
presidents of organizations.
Yeah. Well, which brings me back to the point of, your foundation is absolutely needed. We need to keep those conversations going, and then we need to keep those topics that are coming up kind of sifting down, funneling down to those women that are coming up behind us for sure. Now, I know that we talked about your career and a couple of pivotal points
Oh, yeah.
coming from your career. And as you said, we want the women that are coming up behind us to learn from our mistakes. Like, one of my mistakes is that I didn't say that I wanted to get into leadership until later in my career. So tell me about your story And what were those two pivotal points that really made your journey?
My story. My story is I have a very strong family upbringing. My father worked at Ford Motor Company. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. That is a key thing in the family context. My dad also was my mentor, so he would counsel and guide
Mm.
me through a lot of things. One of the key pivotal things that my dad pushed me into was getting onto the Convergence Conference board at a very young age. And so when I first started my career, I ended up being able to meet a lot of very senior level men. Because at that
Mm.
time, there weren't a lot of women in the industry yet. And so what that did was that gave me the confidence and the assertiveness to work with all these people who were quite a bit older than I was, and leaders of major OEMs and tier ones. And I that was pivotal for me
Yeah.
because that started the ability to network, to socialize, to form relationships, and build rapport with senior level executives. And I
Kim,
and
can
I
I
would
can I
say
ask
it's
you,
great.
how old were you when that was happening?
I think I was 26.
Oh my gosh, what an
Yeah,
amazing age. Because when I was
yeah.
26, I had no idea what was happening. And also, I just want to pause there and recognize your dad
Oh,
because, I mean, my dad had no clue about how to guide me or anything like that. He was not a mechanic, so he was not in that, mindset. But how amazing that you had your dad as a mentor at an early age. And at
yes.
26, for you to be able to have all those mentors and those connections. Okay, continue. Please go ahead. Continue with your story.
So, and that those people that I've met are still my trusted advisors. I call them the
Mm.
gray hairs, and
Yeah.
they're wonderful. And my dad is going to be 88 years young on Tuesday, March 31st,
Wow.
and he still is in the space of mobility, and he still tells me what to do sometimes or
Wow.
back off or whatever. But um, one of the other key things that basically was a pivotal moment um, was being right sized out of an organization that I was like, holy crap, how did this happen? I'm doing what I should be. I am um, bringing in money. There's an ROI. I've got a great network, and it happened. And it happens to a lot more people than you think,
Hmm.
especially now. Now, back then, it was very unique. However, one thing that I have learned is you have to watch your mouth and what you say
Mm.
to people because it can come back and haunt you. And so when I'm mentoring young women and men, I always say, don't put into an email that you don't want to see on the front page of the Wall Street Journal.
Right. And
And
is
that
that
was a
just,
very valuable lesson.
does that just apply to women or women and men from your
It
observation?
applies to both.
Okay.
It applies to both. I mean, let's face it, it happens to men also that they're right sized. And especially nowadays with the influx of AI, um, AI is not going to take over everything,
Right.
but it will make things maybe a little bit more efficient, maybe cost effective. But I do not believe that the human element is going to go goodbye.
Right. I agree. And for those that are listening, can you just elaborate a little bit about the term right sized?
Sure. Right sizing being basically let go, fired, no longer a valuable asset to the organization, um, or no longer needed, or the position was
Mm.
eliminated.
Got
Um,
it.
that's basically what I'm saying. And it's a nicer way to say you're being fired or you're being
Yeah.
let go,
Got it.
which might be politically correct here.
Yeah. So you having those connections, those networks at 26 years old, what did that do for you, for your understanding of how collaboration and relationships work?
Great question. And I'm so happy that you answered that. It has facilitated my career. It has also given me entree to people that I never would have the guts to call up and ask for 3 to 8 minutes of their time because there's an issue. It never would occur to me to ask them to be a speaker at something. And a perfect example is a couple of years ago, AAWA, which is Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation, we hosted Ignite Your Genius at a tier one company. And I ended up asking a question to Joe Fadul, who was the president of Borg Warner. And afterwards, he came up to me and he said, that's a great question. And I said, well, I used to work at Borg Warner. That started the rapport.
Wow.
And ever since then, I have been able to connect with him to the point where he is our Masters of Ceremonies for the 30-year gala, which is in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan for AWA. And those are the types of things that you need to keep going in your career. I have a lady friend that I met in 1985 when I started at TRW. And we are still friends to this day. And she is involved with AWA ever since then. And it's just a really great relationship to have somebody like that so long-standing. Majority of my network are not one-off. They are long-standing rapport and relationships. And it makes a difference because when you need something or someone asks you for something, you can reach out to them and usually they will help you.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard someone recently say that networking is just like a one-off meeting, whereas collaboration is a relationship. It is an ongoing relationship. So that's great. Now, you mentioned previously, and you said yourself that you had those allies, but specifically allies of the opposite sex. So what does that do for a woman, getting that mentor, that ally from the opposite sex?
It definitely broadens your thought processes and your scope of business. And for example, Bert Jordan, who used to be at Ford Motor Company, was a mentor of mine. And it was interesting to listen to him about the culture of the company, his thoughts for the future. Okay. And then he would give me a different outside perspective on my actions, my words, how he perceived me. And those types of comments are invaluable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I've used those. They're positive criticisms. I mean, that's an oxymoron, I guess,
Yeah.
but it's amazing what others see that you don't see.
Right. Yeah.
And if they're a really good mentor or a really good friend, they will identify it to you as a friend. I'll never forget working with Ann Stevens from Ford Motor Company also. She was my mentor through a program. And those sessions that I had with her, you would walk out of that room after an hour of working with, at that time, the most senior level woman in the automotive industry.
Yeah.
And you're just like walking out of there thinking, going, oh my gosh, what did I just learn? How am I going to apply it? And you're amazed. You're in like a fog because the things that Anne would say to me really resonated and then you could apply them. And I was very, very fortunate to have those two, actually three, Dad, as mentors.
That's amazing. I once interviewed a podcast guest, and she was also a leader, and she would say, I have some feedback for you. Would you like it if I share it? So she's not just giving the feedback, she's kind of making sure that she has the permission to give the feedback. And people would say yes, or some people would say, actually, no, I don't want to know. But those are the things that obviously, the way I refer to them is they're blind spots. They're blind spots. And if someone is willing to tell you, hey, you know what, you do this really well, but this is something that you can improve. That's gold. That's pure gold, because they're literally giving you the roadmap on how to improve and how to continue to just get better and continue to grow. So,
Exactly.
so that's,
You have to grow every single day. You have to learn
yeah.
something new.
Yeah. And I think a lot of us, like I mean, I was in the corporate world for over 30 years. I was an EVP of learning and development. And one of my passions, I mean, my husband laughs at me because I get either the library booklet on everything that's happening or the community, like college, the community college, like all the classes. And I'm like, ooh, and he's like, you are such a geek. I'm like, I love just kind of what are they offering? What's, all that stuff. So
Exactly.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
Now, you have had a great career. You have learned a
Thank you.
lot. When it comes to things that, and you've mentioned a couple, but when it comes to things that you have observed that men do, that women do not do, what are
Goodness me.
some like one or two things that you want to mention about that?
Well, men have the opportunity to have that 19th hole discussion where we really can't get into the men's locker room, okay, for a
Mhm.
beer or whatever. Um, One of the things that I have learned is that men go for it. And for example, in a job description, men will go for it. They'll apply for it because it doesn't matter if they can't do everything, they'll just go for it. Women sometimes, not all the time, will look at that job description and say, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't, which is the wrong thing to do because an organization may be looking for somebody like you with your experiences. They can teach you certain things, right, that are in those job descriptions. So I tell women and men, but mostly women, don't sell yourself short. Push the
Right.
button and apply for it. What is the other thing that is interesting? For some reason, men always tend to sit at the table. And when I walk in a room, I make them move over so I can sit at the table
Ooh.
because there's no reason why a woman cannot have a seat at the table. I don't really care if you are a admin, a person, an engineer who's starting any level. You are also entitled to be at that table because you can contribute something that they may not think about. And that's one of the things that kind of irritates me. I
Mhm.
remember being the only woman in a technical meeting and sitting in the back, and I went, this is crap. I'm moving
Mhm.
to the front. And I moved to the front of the table and I said politely, could you move over so I can come in? Sure. So I think that also men have a really great way of promoting themselves. Whereas sometimes the women hold back exactly for what I said, applying for a resume, or even in the job place, if there is an opportunity for them to move from one sector of the company to another, they may not advocate for themselves
Mhm.
into that position, even though they know they can do it.
Yeah.
They may not have an ally or a mentor. So I just say, go for it. What's the worst they're going to tell you?
Right.
No. And that just means not yet in my book.
Right. Yeah. Not yet. I love that. Now, uh, that when you said, that they just don't talk about themselves or don't advocate, what do you think, like, why? Why do they not do that? Is it, well, I won't, put any thoughts, but
They
yes.
they don't want to embarrass themselves. They don't want to say the wrong thing. They
Ah,
don't want to be wrong, right? They don't want to take that chance. Again, not all women
right.
are like that, okay? Because I know some very assertive women, and unfortunately, sometimes so am I. Um,
Yeah.
but that tends it's that hold back, and that's what we're trying to change. It's like, don't hold back. You are smart. You do offer a different perspective sometimes. You do add value. you do come across as being very knowledgeable, very smart. You have the experience, you have the education, you have the knowledge. So open up and say something. The other thing that I think that some women don't say something is that they may say something and then someone of the opposite gender says it, and it is widely accepted by that opposite gender and then passed over or blown over of what she maybe said. That is irritating. How do
Mm-hmm.
you manage that in a meeting with senior level people?
Yeah.
Realistically, most of the time, you let it go.
Yeah.
And I don't know if your teammates and your audience has read the let them theory,
Yes.
but there's some places where you address it. There's some places where you don't. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes what you have to do is just take it outside the room afterwards and say, hey, you know what? Da, 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 da. So I have to say, reading the book, The Let Them Theory
Yes, I
by
did
Jim
read it.
Collins,
Yes.
has, and 4 times now I've read it, and there's a lot of pages flipped over. That has been eye-opening for me, and I have all of my mentees read it. Because it is
Mm.
very poignant, it's very accurate, and it really opens up your eyes to some different thought processes.
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a situation where my husband and I went on vacation and we went to Glacier National Park. And we were driving from one place to the other. And obviously, lots of mountains, very hilly, lots of curvy roads. And my husband was tired. I said, you know what? Let me drive for a little while. He's like, okay. So he fell asleep. And as soon as I kind of got on the roads and started driving, I found myself kind of like, oh, this is a little like I was just concerned. I was kind of white knuckling it. And, so I was going at the speed limit. I was letting all these cars pass by, but I was very anxious. And the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like this. So we got to our destination just fine. And then my husband woke up, we started eating. And so I was like asking him, I said, so when you're driving these roads, is it concerning to you that there's like all these curves? And he's like, no. And I'm like, but it's like really hilly and you're going like I was going at like the minimum. I think it was like 60, 65 miles an hour. He was going like his 70, 75. And I said, so are you concerned about the elevation, the roads, the anything? He's like, no. So I kept asking him like different, and he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how men and women treat their careers. Because I genuinely was like second guessing myself. I like, oh my, and my daughter was in the car. I was like, oh my gosh, I have precious cargo in the car. I'm not going to go. And he was like, not even a thought in his consciousness. He just drives. And I was like, holy cow. And he was like, what? Like, I actually had to explain what was happening. He's like, you should have woken me up. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that I got in my head and I was like concerned instead of just enjoying and driving and whatever. But it is so interesting how men and women just think, innately,
Second
naturally.
guessing yourself.
Yeah, yeah. So I tell that story all the time because I'm just like, that's just another example of,
Yes, it is. A very good
how
example, too.
yeah, how different we are. Kim, what would you say to a woman that is earlier in her career, say in her 20s or 30s, where she knows she wants to do stuff, but she doesn't know exactly what to do, and yet she's doing good work already. She may not be translating her work yet into the impact, but what are like one or two things that you think, other than the ones that we've spoken about, that she can take action on? So tell us what you think.
I think one of the key things is to find that sponsor and help you to look at your career journey. Where is it you want to go? And are you in the right place to get there? Or do you need to go to a different company? Do you fit into the culture of your company in order for you to get to that role that you want to be? It is very, very important that you have the right organization that is going to complement you. The leadership appreciates you and the value that you bring, and gives you some of those. And I'm not saying kudos all the time. I'm saying, maybe once or twice you've gotten like, wow, that was a great presentation, Kim. So happy that you're part of the team.
Yeah.
That builds the confidence. I always talk with my mentees and say, what is your personal branding strategy? And
Mm,
there's a timeline, and there are mission, vision, goals, and objectives. And also, if you want to be a engineer and then a senior engineer, we look at how do you get there, right? You get there through executive presence. You get there through saying the right things, having the mentors, having the allies, the sponsorship, being at the right organization, volunteering, all those things. But above all, you have to be authentic.
mm,
Because if you're not yourself, that's going to be an issue. It will catch up to you. And I think
mm.
one of the things that I've learned is being older. It's funny. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been in this industry for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, is that you learn not everything has to be done ASAP.
Right.
You don't have to have the title by X number of years being in the workforce. You don't have to have the amount of money. Now, there are some brand new people in industry who want the title and want the six-figure salaries. I get it. But you know what? You have to pay your dues.
Mm,
And when you're paying your dues, you have to remain authentic. And don't try and be what you can't be. You cannot be one of the other people that are in your organization. You
right.
have to be yourself, whether it's the way you dress, the way you wear your hair, what you say, saying good morning. You have to be you.
Mhm.
And that comes from influences from the family upbringing,
Yeah.
right? And then also the education that you've had and outside influences like mentors and advocates and things like that. I think that at the end of the day, what I've learned in all these years of being whatever is that there are green eyed monsters out there.
Yeah.
Other people are going to be very jealous of you. But just remember this, they can have the same opportunity that you've had. They've chosen not to. You've
Mm,
chosen a road that is the way it is. So I always tell some of the younger women, be careful. It is very difficult to trust people. And I always say, business is business, friends are friends. You have to be very aware of your surroundings and aware of the politics and aware of what you want to do. That's most
mm.
important.
I love that. That is so, the authenticity is, if you're not true to yourself and you show up with all these masks on, then you're not going to be happy. You're simply not going to be happy. Now, the last big question that I have for you is, you said earlier that you need to advocate, but not be almost like obnoxious. Like, where
Right.
is that balance? Because, we know this, that, when men come in and like, speaking of loud voice, it's okay, but if women do it, then it's not okay. But in your experience, how do we balance, even today in this day and age, how do we balance that?
I believe that it's as a result of communication internally, communication externally. You have to know what you should and shouldn't say, right? You have to be
Mhm,
cognizant of your surroundings. You can judge the audience. Women have that sixth sense about them, right?
mhm,
You can judge when you walk into the room, and you could be dressed in a professional business suit, looking fabulous, and people look at you. You need to walk in with the confidence, right? It doesn't matter who's looking at you. It's just you walk in with that confidence and you basically be yourself.
Mm.
However, you can't brag. It's not good. You can't say, and honestly, I'm at fault at this. At the beginning of my career, I would say, well, gee, I could call up so and so and I can get this, and well, gee, I can just call this person and I know this person, and you have to be careful because other people may want that same rapport and relationship, and they don't, but they don't have it.
Mm.
They also may want the way you dress, the way you talk, the way you look, the way you carry yourself. Again, you have to walk that very fine line of not being, how is it, boastful,
Mhm.
but being very aware of your surroundings. What do those people, what are they talking about? Do they want to talk about business? I usually, when I'm in a group and I'm networking, I usually try and not walk up to somebody and say, well, how's business?
Right.
They don't want to talk about more business. They talk about it all day long. So
Right.
I usually say, hey, how are you today? And wow, have you been on any vacations lately or any exciting places? So that's kind of what I do to keep it loose.
Mhm.
Um, and you're always trying to throw the ball in their lap. Okay. You don't want to hog the conversation. We know that some people, they hog the conversation. You're kind of going like, okay, who else is in the room that I want to go
Yeah.
and talk to? It's like, I don't want to
Absolutely.
talk to you anymore. I got to leave. So again, and I do this when I'm talking to people or interviewing or whatever. I will answer the question and then I'll throw the ball back to them
Yeah.
and turn it over to them to ask for more input. But yeah, and sometimes you got to learn a lesson.
Yep, and,
Sometimes you do. You got to
yeah.
pay the price sometimes.
Yeah. And women are, I think, better at reading the room. It's like sometimes sometimes men are just oblivious, but a couple of things. So Vanessa Van Edwards is an amazing author. She has tons of resources and she talks primarily about um, your position, your executive presence. She has tons of tips and tricks on how to network. Like, for example, hold a cold drink on your left hand so that your right hand is always dry, because, how to shake hands. That's a big one for me. It's
It
like,
is.
I was taught in high school through like a manpower group that you need to walk in shaking hands like very confidently. So that's like been my thing my whole life. And so when my kids were growing up, my daughter specifically, when she started like bringing boys around, she told me this years later. She would tell the boy that she would bring around, she's like, you need to do a really firm handshake because
And
she
I
knew
agree.
that I would do like, oh, good handshake. And so years later, she told me that she would tell all her like friends to make sure that they shake her. So that's hilarious. But
And
Vanessa,
that's a
Vanessa,
really good point. I mean,
yeah.
I'm an avid water skier. I slalom
Okay.
ski in the mornings before work. So at the end of the summer, I look like a football player. And
Oh,
so I always have a firm handshake, and they're like, "Whoa, you're
yeah.
strong." I'm like, "Well,
Yeah.
I water ski every morning."
Yeah.
So, and the other thing too is cold hands.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I can't, I apologize for it, but that's just the way some people's bodies are. They have
Sure.
cold hands.
Sure. But yeah, so she has great resources. So
Cool.
great. But the last thing is you had said go to conferences, associations for women that are coming up, other than like internal like groups, ERGs, things like that. What associations would you recommend for people to join to start them on that journey? Because I am addicted to conferences, to, things like that. So I'd like to kind of get your thoughts on that.
That's a really great question, especially for someone who's coming into the mobility sector or even into any sector for that matter. Of course, Women in Manufacturing is an outstanding organization led by
Mhm.
Allison with a great infrastructure of support in all areas, education, scholarships, courses, professional development. I mean, Allison has got it together. You have Women in Defense. That is another great organization for the women because defense, aerospace, military, you have organizations that support those groups because let's face it, in the next 10 years or so, $9 billion industry in aerospace and defense and military is going to be forthcoming. So that's really, really great. You have Women in Communication. You have Power, the Women's Power Network. You have WAN, WAN, which Stephanie May has taken global. There are so many organizations out there. And then you have your church. I mean, you can always go back to the church and see what's going on there. I always encourage women to join an organization because it gets them out of their comfort shell. It also gets them to become involved in something that is outside of their company and not be so inwardly focused. And I commend them when they do. Inforum is another great organization, and they've been around for a long time also. Automotive Women's Alliance Foundation, we're celebrating 30 years.
Wow.
30 years of existence is just incredible for a not-for-profit being run by all volunteers.
Wow.
Nobody gets paid. And the one thing that myself and Fran Bachman, when we basically morphed from another organization, we said from the get-go, there will be no catfighting. At all. We have zero tolerance for it. And to this day, that's the mantra. And I have to say, I've never, ever had an issue. If we do, we attack it right away. But you have a team of over 30 women in AWA where they all work for the same mission and vision. I mean, we're all about scholarships, and we're giving women the opportunity to meet and greet other women and men that they might not meet ever in their career. And that goes the same for all the other organizations that I mentioned too. I know I missed some, but I can't remember all of them.
That's great.
Yeah, there's some phenomenal organizations out there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was funny. When we first started up AWA, we had men come to us and say, well, can I join? Absolutely. And one person said, well, yeah, I'd like to come in and meet some women to see if I can find a date. And I said, well, I don't really think that's the reason why you should join, but we do welcome you.
That's hilarious. Well, good.
Yeah.
All right, Kim. Well, as always, I promised you that we might go over, and we sure did, because the conversation is just always so good. But I just want to thank you for coming on and spending your time sharing all of your wisdom, your knowledge, because this is why I created this podcast, so that we can get women like you to come and share as many ideas, tips and tricks, whatever you want to call it, so that those women, again, that are coming up behind us are able to get to their goals faster than we ever could. So thank you so much, Kim, for your time.
You're very welcome. It's been my pleasure. And if I can leave you with anything parting, I always say communication is key. And if we wouldn't have communicated, we wouldn't have been doing this. So communicate, communicate, communicate. And thank you so much. I love this. It was great.
So here's what I want you to take away from today's conversation. If you are reading that job description and you're listing out ways to count yourself out, you're going to find them. But the thing is, no means not yet. So if you apply for a job and you don't get it, that's okay. You can keep trying. As Kim mentioned, obviously you know this, finding your allies, finding your sponsors, even if they are male sponsors, that's even better sometimes because they see the blind spots the way we cannot see them, as I mentioned in my story when my husband and I went to Glacier National Park. And when you walk into a room, definitely don't sit in the back. Move to the front, even if it makes you uncomfortable, but do it as yourself. I just want to thank Kim so much for telling it like it is. It is so refreshing when I have a woman come out here and just be brave and speak her mind without having to ask for permission. So I am so grateful that Kim made it a point to come on to the No Woman Left Behind podcast, because she is an amazing advocate for women. And last thing, I just want to leave you with one free gift. Many women that I talk to feel that they are overlooked at work. One of the tools that I have created is a free impact clarity tool. So I've been talking a lot about the articulation gap, and the articulation gap is the distance between the impact you create and the impact leadership recognizes and rewards. And a lot of times women don't know how to talk about their value at work. So with the free impact clarity tool, you can start talking about the impact that you bring, and it explains a lot more with the tool. So if you are interested in getting your free impact clarity tool, the link is going to be in the show notes as well. So with that, remember to be brave, be bold, and take action.